I don't know. I'm on the event right now, and all it's still showing is the one that lasted 7 seconds.
It's there now. I'm looking at it.
I don't know. Still not seeing. You mean it's? All right. Well, it's no longer an event, bro. It's now you're just live on our page.
Well, there was never it. It doesn't.
Yeah, they created an event for you.
It doesn't create that now. That's the only problem.
No, I was just on it for the last like 10 minutes, dude. Okay. Mirlo. All right, thanks for joining us, you guys. You are watching Stormcrow, Dreamers Talking to Dreamers, episode 55. Can you believe 55 episodes, man? We only started 20 years ago when we were wee lads. And it's taken us 20 years to do 55 episodes. Once every like 3 years we do one. But the technological advancements have been amazing. No kidding. About 3 years we've been doing this now. We do once a month, interview writers, actors, filmmakers. We've had Faith Hunter. We've had a plethora of people. Andrew the Reinforcer Anderson. I don't know. Throw some more names out, Mark.
Adam Gold.
Yeah.
We had Brian
Vicky
Lee
Dolly.
Baker.
Vicky Dolly we've had twice.
Mm-hmm.
The very late and amazingly talented Del Weston we had on twice, who passed recently, but created Action on Film Festival that literally helped thousands of filmmakers. So, but today we have some amazing lit RPG authors. As a lot of you know or don't know, I started a few months ago writing lit RPG novels, my first novels ever. It's been a hoot. So I've been in the last few episodes of our show, we've tried to take a focus on lit RPG authors. So let's bring them in. Who would you like to start off with first?
Let's start off with Cailan.
Okie dokie. Cailan Wilkinson, man. At an age where most kids are partying or going to college or doing a plethora of things, but are usually not writing multiple novels, you have Cailan Wilkinson, who is now, I believe, with 3 books out or 4 books out. Amazing kid. He's way ahead of the game. Let's bring him in.
Hello.
Hey.
It's an honor to be here.
Huh?
It's an honor to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Very cool. And the show is now on my page if you want to share it. But awesome. Next up, we have a veteran writer who has a plethora of lit RPG books out. Amazing spirit, very talented. Let's bring in Kyle Johnson.
Hey there.
Kyle.
How's it going?
It's good. It's good, man. You missed, though, in the intro, Mark pulled out his shattered lightsabers and did some acrobatic wingtip feather tucks, man. It was amazing. Yeah, I know. It's hard to imagine.
Yeah.
You should see him do the same thing in a yellow summer dress, though, man. It's even more.
That would have a much bigger effect. Much bigger.
Well, it's awesome having you guys here. This is our 55th episode in about 3 years, Mark? About that?
It's 2018, October of 2018. So it's gone 3 years.
Oh, now. Almost 4 years. About 3.5 years. 4. Yeah. All right. Well, it's great having you. Great having anyone that's watching now or in the future. The whole show is Stormcrow, Dreamers Talking to Dreamers. It's about artists supporting each other and talking to each other and introducing artists to not only each other, but to new audiences and all those things. Some of the best things we've been able to accomplish, in my opinion, is guests who didn't know each other before the show ended up becoming friends because of the show, and then they helped each other out, whether it was all of a sudden, even recently, I saw someone on a we had a filmmaker and a musician actor, and the next thing I know, like 2 weeks later, I'm seeing that they're in that filmmaker's like next film, and they didn't even know each other. We also had someone get married or engaged.
Engaged, yeah.
One guest buddy got introduced to the other guest, and now like they're engaged to get married. It's pretty interesting. But let's hop right into it. I'm going to start with Kyle, then we'll go to Cailan. Kyle, in the last 2 years, what is a project you've done that you were really proud of? You thought turned out great?
The first one I ever wrote, Singularity Online. It's VR lit RPG, so virtual reality. It's set inside of like a fully immersive video game, and it started during the pandemic. I was bored, had nothing to do, and just sat down and wrote. And next thing I knew, I got 7 books, and it's a completed series, and it's doing great, and people are reading it. I'm like,
well, give us a little bit of a theme, like a fantasy setting.
It is a fantasy setting. It's in a darker type of fantasy world. So the concept is the main character is beta testing the game along with a bunch of other beta testers, and comes into a world where the bad guys have already won. So it's the great epic fight between good and evil is over. Evil won, and now he and the other players are kind of tossed into this world to make their own way. And he kind of unlocks the game in a way that most people don't, just learns how to play it at a level that most people don't. So he becomes a lot more influential in the game over time. And so he's a spellcaster, a sorcerer, and he has to create.
That's his class, sorcerer.
His class is sorcerer. So, and his difference with everybody else is that he doesn't just get given spells when he levels up. As he gains levels, if he wants a spell, he has to create it and research it and figure it out himself. So he starts with like, I have the energy and I have to figure out how to pattern it and work it and turn it into a spell. And so
it's really kind of a little bit of a more sorcerer derivation of cultivation.
Exactly. And
instead
it's
of
got
them
some
working on their
cultivation
cores, he's manipulating and matrixing and patterning out mana.
Exactly. And he has to come up with like fractal patterns to store the energy and ways to distribute it and how to like separate out different types of elemental power and everything. And then he learns like more advanced types of magic that affect minds and souls and things like that. And eventually unlocks like the primal forces of magic that are the very like the fundamental forces of creation itself. As time goes by,
I read a lot, so in almost all lit RPG the last few months, except when my like well-known like John Gwynn, my favorite authors come out, I almost exclusively lit RPG. So I'll try to pick up your series.
Awesome, I love what you do.
So you wrote that book within, and I get it. A lot of people during COVID either went crazy or figured out things they could do at home. So, did you have any writing background before that, or?
Yeah, I mean, I did some writing back in high school and college. I'd written, I wrote a fantasy series that I had submitted to Tor way back in like right out of college that didn't go anywhere. I wrote a few short stories, things like that. Nothing that was really huge, just for fun. And, I was reading lit RPG and I just thought, there's this story that I'd love to read that nobody else has written. I'm just going to write it myself. And so that's
cool. Yeah. Very cool. That's the same with me. Like during the same period of time, I latched onto, I believe, Dragon Mage by Vidar. And that was my first experience with lit RPG. Unless you count when I was a kid, the old Dungeons and Dragons. Go to page 86. You know what I mean?
Choose your own adventure.
Yeah. But which is kind of I kind of similar in a sense. I mean, I would say it's but and then I was reading I read a lot anyway, and I have since I was a kid. But I read nonstop one after another of lit RPG, The Land. I mean, it went through all the biggies and the Nethers and all that stuff. And then I was in the middle of writing a feature script, my 6th one, and I was like, what am I doing, man? I haven't even found funding for my other 5. Why don't I actually take decades of writing skill and actually do something that actually might make me money, as opposed to writing more film set things that sit in a box. And then that was my reason of getting into writing lit RPG. So it's very cool to hear your story. I see a lot of similarities, but very cool. We're going to bounce back to your series in 2 seconds. But same to you, Cailan. In the last 2 years, what was something you created that you thought turned out well and you were very proud of?
Probably my first book I started writing in January of 2020. So around COVID times is when I started writing. And it was my first book I'd ever written. And it's The Elementalist, Book 1, Darkfire. And about 8 or so months to write its entirety. And it was just an amazing experience. It was a lot of fun. I have a passion in life, what I love to do. I love writing just fast-paced lit RPG fantasy.
I do like the fast pace. I mean, I'm a big fan of trying to keep kinetic energy going, although you always have to have space to also do some character development, which sometimes is not the funnest shit to write. But it does help all the rest of it. So what's the thematic of the series?
So it's definitely a very dark series. It takes place in another world. It's like no
it's a
VR
portal.
involved. Yeah. So it's another planet where it's like their way of life is fantasy. There's this magic which is explained throughout the series in more depth, which governs the world with different obviously statuses, numbers, RPG staples. This giant obelisk thing which trains everyone in the world who has like their class and such, they get implants in their head which connect to the obelisk, which give them their ability to progress. And it's about this guy named Jack who he was a farmer, then bandits killed his whole family, his farm's destroyed. It's just about him surviving in the wilderness and just trying to get powerful enough where he can go to sleep without worrying he's going to die or end up being teleported somewhere. It's a very brutal world, very dark themes and stuff. Lots of humor. I love dark comedy.
Very cool. Yeah, and in darkness, the same thing in scripts. You can write the darkest shit in the world, but you gotta throw in some comedic moments to kind of
I love the comedy.
to counterbalance it. It's like a great example I always give when I've talked to other people in a very similar subject is like the movie Blow. I love Johnny Depp, but that character literally had no redeeming qualities, and it was literally negative energy from beginning all the way to the end. There was nothing to like about the character. And it didn't work at all, that film. Like literally, it was just depressing from point. At least, like, I don't know if you guys, you might be a little young, Cailan, but there was a film called Goodfellas, and Joe Pesci played an a-hole of a character, but he was funny. So there was like a redeeming quality to his character, and without that, you would have just had an a-hole character that you would not want to pay attention to. So I hear you. It's a good insert into heavy, dark things. Plus, I think sometimes when you get heavy, you create more emotional rapport with your characters, between the reader and the characters. If all they're doing is, there's some series out there that, I mean, are fun and all that stuff, but it's sometimes hard to connect with them because everything is always light and fluffy, and
It has to be realistic.
Yeah, it's all funny comedy nonstop. Like I loved Piers Anthony as a kid, but even he, with his light air type stuff, would periodically have some heavy emotes or something happen. You know what I mean? So, and here I am elucidating to authors you probably have no idea who they are. Okay? But Piers Anthony was like one of the fathers of fantasy, especially comedic fantasy. He inspired probably people like Adams and stuff like that, Hitchhikers and everything. But you probably don't know who that is either, but it doesn't matter. That's very cool, Cailan. Sounds like I something I'd want to check in on. Did you get your cover thing figured out?
Yeah. So I combined my first 3 books in the element in that series into one book because for the story that I'm getting the audiobook done, and instead of having like 3 7-hour or 8-hour books, I want like one like 20 something hour book on Audible because that's going to attract more people. So I needed to get a new cover art for the omnibus, and
So, yeah, you made it an
it didn't come
omnibus.
out exactly how I wanted, and I got overcharged, but it's out. So
I'm telling
that's
you,
what
Fibber, man, Fibber. Like I gave you, I think, a link to my guy, but yeah, you have to be careful on Fibber, however the hell you say that word.
Fiverr, I don't know.
Fiverr, I think. I have
Fiverr.
no
Yeah, I don't know, but there are some amazingly talented artists on there that do things for cheap because they live in literally third world countries where like $50 to them is like $200. You know what I mean? So, and then they just do it with mass, like get a ton of people doing it. But very cool, man. Let's pop back to Kyle, and then we'll come back to Cailan in a second. Kyle, what is something you are currently working on that you're excited about, you're passionate about?
I work on multiple projects at a time now. My main project I'm working on is a sci-fi series. It's still lit RPG. It's set, and it's called Drone Rising, and it's set tens of millennia in the future, where basically humanity has met all of its needs, wants for nothing, and has become kind of like the guys in Wall-E, apathetic and everything.
That's just what came in my
and so the system that is in charge of running everything for people, its main protocol is to help people. So it came up with a video game based way for them to live their lives. So everybody gets a career and they spend their existence trying to level up that career. So if you're a singer, you perform and sing and practice, and doing that can level up your career. And the main thing is that everyone is immortal, because if they die, they're respawned, they're reborn. And they do that by, there's an entire cast of people called drones. If you die, the drone, or you are a drone, is basically taken and rewritten with your memories, thoughts, body. So the drone is completely turned into you. And so the main character was a drone who had a flaw. Her willpower was too high. Her willpower, because everybody has stats, and hers was too high. And so when she went to be overwritten, the system said, wait, this is an error. Is she a drone? Is she a citizen? We can't. And if there's an error, we have to err on the side of protecting a citizen. So it elevated her up to becoming a citizen. But that's something that like the society can't handle, because they're afraid that, okay, if that starts happening and she's successful, more drones.
What happened to the person she was supposed to become, dude?
Well, and that's the thing. The person who was supposed to be rewritten as her got like lost. They lost their
Lost in the Matrix.
They had to respawn from an old backup copy. They lost years and years of progress.
So they're pissed.
And so they come hunting for her too. But so the thing about drones is that drones have no memory. They have no idea of what happened yesterday or the day before, and they have no connection to anyone. So this woman is born and raised up with zero emotional attachment to anyone or anything. She has nothing but
she
ambition.
Becomes a cold, merciless killer.
Sort of, yes. But she's more just driven and ambitious. And if killing someone is the best way to get something done, she'll do it. They're going to be reborn anyways. What does she care, you know? But if she doesn't have to kill somebody, she won't, because it's all
kind of
about.
Reminds me of In Defiance, when they try to merge the main character right in the beginning, when they try to merge him with a demon that's getting thrown down. And he has like a 0.0002% chance of being the being that stays and not gets obliterated.
Yes, Defiance of the Fall, yes.
Yeah. Defiance of the Fall.
Yeah. So she is a combination of like warrior and starship captain who kind of rides the line between right and wrong. And as time goes by, she sinks farther and farther away from right and more towards wrong. And so that I'm working on the third book of that series right now. There's 2 of them out already.
I don't know how you guys do that when you juggle like multiple books at once. I just don't get it. Like I have to focus on one, get it written. Now, what I'm going to do after my book 4 or book 5 of my current series, I'm going to start a new series. But then I'm going to alternate between the two. Like I'm going to do book 1 then, and then go back and do book 5 or 6 on the other one, then come back and do book 2 on that. You know what I mean? Like multiple of you guys that I know in Lit RPG, like write like 2 or 3 at once. I'm like, man, my brain would be so fried trying to like keep track of all that.
And that's how I did my first 2 series. So I wrote book 1 of Singularity Online, then book 1 of Phase Shift, then book 2 of Singularity, book 2 of Phase Shift. And as I was going, it just got to the point where I'm like, I had all these ideas of things I wanted to do, but also it's a palate cleanser. You know, you hit a spot where you're like, I'm feeling a little bit burned out about this series, but by like in the morning, I write in Drone Rising, and then in the afternoon, I write in the Doorverse, which is a series I have out on Royal Road. And so it's like that one kind of is completely different from the drone one. So it sort of like keeps me from getting burned out on either series.
And I hear you, because I've been struggling with book 3, a little bit of burnout, but what I've realized, and I've talked to people now, if you have the patience and time, that most of the biggest authors in Lit RPG that I've seen are guys that literally spent like 2.5 years on Royal Road or whatever, and literally built their fan base up into like millions before they actually published their first book. And then that's why their books blew up and all that stuff. Now, if you have the fiscal life to be able to do that, and if you have the patience to do that, is probably the correct way to go. I personally didn't do that. But otherwise, most authors I've talked to, it's usually when they've gotten book 6, book 7, book 8, book 9 out, whether that's all the same series or multiple series or whatever, is when they say they finally start seeing enough fiscal returns to like start focusing more on their writing and their. Would you agree with that, or would you not agree with that?
I mean,
I'm asking because of all the young authors who might watch this that are trying to figure it out. You know what I mean?
I think I got very lucky in that first Singularity Online took off pretty quickly. I was expecting to make, $50, $60 a month. Woohoo, little extra spending money, go out to dinner, that sort of thing. And it actually took off really well. And so I own a business as well. It's a gymnastics center. And as of right now, my writing makes about 50% of what the gymnastics center brings in a year. And that's without all of the rent and payroll and insurance that I have.
So you're saying per year you're writing
annually
your writing brings in about 50% of what you make
of what I make for the entire business. And so I think I got very lucky.
This is per year or per month?
Well, per year. Right now, per month, it's about this. I mean, it's per month and per year because it all comes out the same. But when I first started, it took me about 3-4 months before I was making enough per month that I could be like, I can afford to hire another couple of staff to cover me at the gymnastics center and write full time. And by about after I had written, because the best thing, and Cailan will tell you this too, the best way to sell book 1 is to write book 2. And the best way to sell book 2 is to write book 3.
Yeah, and then I've been also told don't buy advertising until you're about book 3 or book 4 in.
Yeah, and I didn't. I advertised almost completely through Facebook, and didn't pay for any advertising until probably.
You're doing what all of us do. You post
on all the groups, and I posted like, some of the groups let you post weekly, and some of them let you post once, and I just did whatever they let me do all the time until I got to that point where like enough people were buying the books that I could afford to put some advertising in with Amazon and pay for some advertising through Facebook and still be making, enough money every month to call
Okay,
it
so
work.
but back to what I was saying, because you know enough authors now.
Yeah.
Is my statement still more accurate with most authors?
Yeah, I think that most people, like, you were talking about Royal Road. I don't think most authors, even the biggest authors in the thing, there's a couple who started through Royal Road, the ones who do the web serials that are kind of catching on now.
Well, you have
like
Primal Hunter, you
like
have
Primal
Sherwood,
Hunter, He Who
you
Fights with
have
Monsters,
the
Randomly Ghost
Defiance, you have like
Town.
some of the bigger ones did that. Not,
Yeah.
But then you have stuff like Jez. I can
Right.
never say his last name.
Caleo. Yeah.
Sure.
Jez Caleo or Dave Wilmarth or Tao or Dakota. They didn't start that way. They just they wrote and published. So you don't have to do it that way. I think that's a route, and it's a perfectly good one. But I can think of maybe 5 or 6 really successful authors who started in Royal Road versus the thousands of Royal Road stories out there that, so I would say that writing your book and getting your book out in front of people, for me, that's what worked, is just writing it and putting it out there. And
I'm just trying to, the reason I ask this is I'm trying to give realistic expectations to young authors who might watch this. And from most of the authors that I've talked to, Oswald, all those guys, is that they said it was when it was like book 6, book 7, book 8, when they had a plethora of books out, is when it started becoming more, I guess, reliable.
Right. I was at about book 4. About book 4 that my income was to the point where I felt like realistically I could live off of writing if I wanted to. If I wanted to just sit into it full time. So.
Yeah, and then I've also heard, and then I'm asking these questions so that people watching can get that, is what you just said a second ago. The best advertisement for book 1 is book 2. The best advertisement again for book 1 is book 3. The best advertisement for book 1 again is book 4.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's not just because of, people want to read more series. Amazon does that. That's Amazon's, how its algorithm works, is when you have book 1 and you put out book 2, Amazon starts showing book 2 and book 1 more often to people.
No, I'm even getting, I did a pre-order on my book 3, and I've now gotten it's still a month away, and I've already gotten 4 emails from Amazon saying up and coming books, and my book's at the top.
Right. Exactly.
And I'm like, yes, thank you, Amazon. Yes, I am interested in my own book. Thank you, Amazon. That's very nice of you.
So once you start saying you've got more stuff out there, Amazon says it's a better product, it's a longer term product, and it starts pushing it more.
Well, and you're giving multiple units that they can make money on it.
Exactly. So Amazon prefers that. So it's going to push you harder when you've got, like, I currently
Amazon prefers long series.
I've got, I think, 15 books out right now total. And so Amazon pushes all of them all the time because I have so many of them. And so I'm on Amazon constantly seeing my own books. Is this what you're interested in? Is this what you're,
Yeah, that's the funny part. That's what they say, is they send me that my own book going, yes, Amazon, I'm interested in my own book. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and my wife does it too.
Wait. I want to dance back to Cailan, because I'm sure he has a lot of input on what we were just talking about, and from his perspective, which is also a good perspective for young authors that are starting. So, Cailan, let's start with something you're working on now that you're excited about, and then your take or input on what we've been conversing about.
Oh, right now, my plan ahead, if you would, I've got 3 books I'm working on. One that I'm focusing on and that I'll talk about. I'm working on the Elementalist book 3, which is what I'm almost done with and putting a lot of attention into. It's the last Elementalist book. So it's a huge thing for me. But I'm also working on, I published a book in June called A Flesh Golem's Tale of Resurgence. I'm working on its sequel, A Flesh Golem's Tale of Redemption. And then I'm working on a book called The Villain's Favorite Chef. And these are all set in the same world. So I'm equally excited for all 3.
So it's a spin-off.
Yeah, they're all spin-offs from the Elementalist. But the Elementalist book 3, been writing that. I mean, I've had it in my head. I've known what's gonna happen, for like 2 years now. But I'm finally writing where I'm almost to the conclusion of
Although
book
you'll
3.
find that things change once you actually start carving it on a page. But yeah,
Definitely. The thing is, like, I know what the conclusion is, but I don't know when the end is. I don't know, like, which character is going to say the last words of the book, or what the last, the last event is going to be of the book, like, where I'm going to put the end. I know the conclusion, but
no, I'm the same way. Even in scenes, that like I know what I want to accomplish in that scene, but how I get there and what happens, I kind of just
it
wing it
changes
through.
constantly. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm excited and invested in this book because it's just a huge thing for
Well,
me.
you're bringing the final
ending this.
conclusion of at least that story.
Yeah,
to
it's the
an
grand
ending.
conclusion, and I mean, it's kind of sad for me that this is like this character's like done, but it's really fun, interesting, and
Well, never say done, man. Ask Abercrombie
yeah,
about Logan
he's
Nine
hitting
Fingers,
his
man. Like,
climax. The big twist is coming up. But what you were saying about see, I haven't hit it yet, but I'll let you know about when I do, when I get a certain amount. Maybe I can be your running example of when exactly you make it to the point where, like, if it's book 6 or book 7, that really starts the returns for you, money wise, like making it so you can just focus on writing with a solid income. I'm not even close to that yet, but I didn't start on World Road, and I didn't have any. That thought never really crossed my mind. Like, I knew about authors that did, but like Kyle said, said I don't have the patience for it. I think you said that.
I did.
I don't have the patience for
Well,
it because
I
just
started
want my
there.
book out.
I wrote the first book there, and I still have book 2 up there and book 3 I put up there. But fiscally, I did not. I'm getting older, and fiscally, I needed the books to start making money. I couldn't just sit on Royal Road for 2 years, and it was a struggle choice for me because at the time, book 1 was on the I don't know trending up and coming, whatever it's called. There's a list of books or whatever. And as soon as I took it down, it got shot off that, like, it was disqualified because obviously you have to take your book down when you put it up on KU. So it is a decision for a lot of people, like what they can do. But I agree with you. I didn't have the physical patience nor the spiritual patience. I wanted to get my book out there. So I hear you.
Yeah, I wanted to. I was in such a rush with book 1. I've definitely taken a step back for all the books after book 1, but I was in such a rush just because I was terrified someone else would come out with a book with similar ideas to my own. And I just had this irrational fear that I needed to get it out as soon as possible.
That is irrational because your voice is always yours, man. There's no, unless you
Yeah.
got one of those back east people like taking your book and putting it through Google Translate and adding.
I found several in my book on different websites.
Oh no, you're talking about pirating. Yeah, I've already seen my books on a bunch of pirating. Just do a Game of Thrones thing and take it as a compliment, man.
I do, yeah.
Because you're
There
not
are
going to be
all
able to
these
do
great
anything about
comments,
it. So
too.
just take it as a compliment. That you're worthy of someone actually taking the time to copy
I'm
your
pretty
book
sure,
and put it
it's
up
just
on.
bots. Like, if it's an actual person, I'd be surprised.
I don't know. I don't know if bots would actually do a download copy of a
Good
Kindle
point.
and then immediately throw it up because they're not making money on it. So, I mean, it's one thing if they're making money, then I'm sure someone would program a bot to go do it all day long. But on pirating sites, they're not getting paid. They're just
they're
throwing
free.
it up there, and people are downloading your shit for free. I guess unless they own the website, then they maybe make money off ads, but I highly doubt it. What was I going to say? It's very cool though. So you're now doing what I got off of that is you're doing 2 new series on top of the original.
Yep.
And they're all 3 in. They're all 3 in the same world.
Yeah, and they're all like making kind of almost like Marvel. They're making different. The characters from one book will pop up in the next as a little role.
Gotcha. Kind of like
it's
Nora
all-
Online.
Yeah, it's all
Nora Unleashed, Nora
one
Online.
continent on this world. So there are like the continents only so people hear about
Mark,
events
dude,
happening.
Mark is not. It's not the time to get your yellow summer dress on, buddy. It's not.
No.
It's not that moment. Save
No,
it for
I
the break.
had, Alex just had surgery, so I had to go help her real quick.
So you had to get her soup or something.
No, I had to go I had to go help her real quick.
Oh. Well, tell her hello. His significant other, who's an amazing woman and slaps Mark around and keeps him in place, is just had surgery. So she had a third arm put on because she was trying to go for Barnum and Bailey's.
Oh.
Get that back scratcher.
Very cool, you guys. What we're going to do, though, is we're going to take a 5-minute break. Thank you, everyone that's been watching. But Lola is giving me the evil eye if she has to go piss. So, but we're going to take a 5-minute break. It's been amazing so far. The amazingness will continue. You guys have been watching Stormcrow, Dreamers Talking to Dreamers. As always, dream big and put the steps into and the sweat to make those dreams come true. We're going to be back in 5 minutes with 2 amazing guests. We will see you in 5. And then you guys just don't disconnect. He'll put our thing up. He'll put our screen up, and then in 5 minutes we'll come back on.
Sounds good.
Good.
And we're back.
Cailan here.
Hi.
There we go. All right. We're gonna start where we left off, except move into the future. Kyle, what's your plan for the next 2 years? What's a big goal that you haven't already conversed about that you'd like to see it to fruition?
Well, I still like Cailan. Just because I finished a couple series doesn't mean I'm done in my worlds. So I'm going to expand my completed series, the Singularity Online and Phase Shift worlds. I already have plans for new series to go into that. I'm going to take that Doorverse
spin-off series. A
spin-off series basically. The Phase Shift one is actually going to be happening with a character from the original series who got introduced in the original series. The Singularity one is going to be a totally different character, but as Cailan said, the characters from the first series are going to make cameo appearances and be present, just not the main focus anymore. Now this new character is going to be stepping into the world. And
should do as a spin-off series, you should do an ode to Laverne and Shirley and Lenny and Squiggy, man.
I don't know. How do you spell Haas and Pfeffer Incorporated? That's my question.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, and then the Royal Road series, Doorverse, that was never really intended to. I mean, that was like I was trying that to see how it goes. But like you said, books on Royal Road don't make you money. They have to be on Amazon. So that one is going to transition over to actual book form.
A lot of fans on Royal Road are entitled and mean, bro. When you take books down, dude.
Yeah.
Oh my lordy! When I took book one down, I had like 4 tank ratings. I had another person just write this long review saying how great my series was, but it was only up for a month and I didn't get to read it. So here's a 1 rating.
Yeah, I know.
I'm like,
tons
so you didn't get it for free, so you're.
That's not the
what it is.
Light, like a shine on the rainbow to that, or however you say it. There's a good side to that. It means they cared. Like they care.
It is, but I'm like the $2.99 on Kindle is a boundary. You deserve it for free, so I get a 1 rating. Since you're not getting it for free.
Oh yeah. I get the weirdest. Like I have this one guy who reads every chapter, and every chapter he complains about the main character, and he's like, "I love this series, but man, this guy is so stupid," and da da da. And I'm just like, why are you still reading? And then like every so often he'll just say,
have you been Clark yet?
Yeah, every so often he'll just be like, and I love this book. This is a great book. This is so cool. But I don't get it. I'm like, if I hated a character that much.
Well, there's this one guy on Amazon that, man, if you go on his profile, he has something like 1,400 reviews.
Yeah,
1,400, dude. Like that's obviously, and like 90% of them are him bashing everybody and giving them like 1 and 2 reviews. And he seems to love Lit RPG. So literally,
yeah,
his last name's Clark or something like that. But
yeah, I think I got hit by him on one of the on the Singularity series.
Yeah, he didn't do my second book, but he did book 1. But the only problem I had with him, I don't have a problem with negative reviews or whatever, and he had some good points. My problem was that based on what he wrote, he cherry-picked chapters to read and then wrote the review as if he read it from cover to cover. So there was like a lot of like totally erroneous information. Like one, he said, "Oh, he never gets loot. All he gets is like the little stuff from the goblins." And I'm like, bro, there's literally like 4 different chapters where they get insane loot. So you're telling me you basically skimmed the whole book and then
And I honestly stopped reading reviews a long time ago. It just
you have to almost for your own mental health.
The helpful ones are few and far between. They really are. And there are some. Every so often somebody will say something that you're like, that's a good point. And that's something for me to think about. But for every one of those, there's the review of there's one person who hits every one of my books. She reads every single one of my books, and every one of them she goes, "This was a great book. I love this book. This was so good. However, it used bad language and it talked about sex, so I'm taking 2 stars off." It's but
yet she reads
every
the next
one of them does
Well,
this.
anytime I say, and I'm sorry, anytime I see a 1 or 2 star, that's malicious. That's like a agenda. That's like someone wanting to tank your book. Someone wanting to,
Yeah.
because
and
unless
again,
it's like a 4-year-old writing a novel who can't even put a sentence together at all,
right?
There's no reason for anyone to get a 1 or 2 star.
Yeah, and I don't even mind if somebody in Phase Shift. I wrote a side novel that is set from the main character's love interest's point of view, and the main character of the Phase Shift series isn't in this at all, except ancillary. He's mentioned, and I had a bunch of people just say I didn't like it. It was from her point of view. It was more emotional than the other ones. And I'm like, that's fine. You don't like the book.
Well, because it's a different character. It's got to be different.
You don't like the book. And that book, as you said before, that book was a total character exploration. It was all about character development and all about her individual growth. And there was action in it, but it wasn't like action-packed the way that most of them are. And so I got it. I'm like, a lot of people who really love the main series, it was a different flavor for them. And so I'm cool with that. But then I get the one that says, oh, her best friend was a lesbian, and so now I'm going to have to like have that thrown in my face all the time. I'm like, sorry?
Hey, dude, if you go around the world trying to appease everyone, you're not going to appease anyone.
Exactly. So I just, that's why I stopped reading the reviews.
You got to just do you, and you will find the audience that appreciates that. Like I've just started, and I don't have huge numbers or anything like that. I think I sold 110 books the first month, 130 this last month. But I do have a few people that just love it, and that's good, man.
Right.
And that's who, you know what I mean, you just focus on. You're going to have people that love it, and then you're going to have people that doesn't matter what you do, they're not going to like it.
Yeah. And then the last thing that I'm working on is I have one idea that's like in my head and it's sketched out, and I have like the status sheets put together and the world rules and everything, and just haven't started writing it yet because I want to kind of get forward on a couple other things first. But that one is my first like in another world that where there's like game like rules in a completely other world. Everything else has either been in a game or in this world where the game kind of takes over. And this one is the first one in a complete fantasy setting, and it's almost
so it's a portal as opposed to
and it's not even a portal because you're not
because
going
they're born there, they're not getting
they're born there, they're raised there. It's like if you've read the Infinite Worlds, it's similar to that in like the idea that it's a world that's a real world that just some individial people have a specific ability that lets them track themselves.
Well, and there's some post-apocalyptic worlds like that. One of Jez's series, the Bronze Age, I forget, Rise of Mankind, is basically doesn't go anywhere. It's not VR, it's not Portal, it's on Earth and just
right. And my Phase Shift series is that too. It's apocalyptic on Earth, and this one is just a totally different world, a new land where magic is real and it's a fantasy world, but specific people in this world happen to have the ability to see a status and track their stats and their levels and their skills. And the main character is just one of those people. And so that's where the lit RPG element is. So that,
you guys ever find that convoluted? Because sometimes like my Bible is getting so effing big and chaotic that it's like, I at some point I need to go and organize it because literally like I'm like it's now like 50 pages long and I literally have to like jump around to find what I'm looking for. And do you guys organize that at all?
Everything is Excel for me. I don't know about Cailan.
Cailan, are you frozen, Cailan?
Yeah, me.
I think you're frozen. There you go.
There you go.
All right.
Okay.
You're back.
It cut out for a second. Were you saying notes?
Yeah, like well, I call it a Bible. You can call it whatever you want.
Yeah,
But it's
I've got
basically where you're putting all your character sheets and all your info that you need to save, so you don't have to look back in book 2 or book 1 or.
So
Uh-oh,
I've
you
got.
froze again, Cailan. There you go. We
Am I
stopped.
back?
Okay, now yeah, go ahead.
I use Google Docs for everything, so I have 2 different documents, for the Flesh Golem books and one for the Elementalist. So, and I notes, and there's so much. They're just filled with different
Yeah,
random
my
stuff.
thing is it's just not organized. Like lately,
Mine
I've been
isn't
trying
either.
to
I've
copy
got
and
a
paste
status
it near
that
the
I've got
character
how,
that it goes to.
I've got like a status here, how many characters in this example over here, then what level is over here, then different monster stats over here. It's not organized one bit.
No, that's in either of mine. I'm like, oh my god, as I get, and this is my book. My series is going to be probably 8 or 9 books, man. And I'm like, man, by the time I'm going to have an aneurysm if I don't organize it at some point, because it's just going to keep getting, I'm
When
on
you get
book
to a
3
certain,
and it's already 55 pages long of just info and character
when you get to a
sheets.
certain point, there's so much that's happened in the world that I actually begin to forget the names of some minor characters that were in like book 1, and then when they pop up in book 3, it's like I got to go back to my notes and pray.
No,
that
I do
actually
the same
wrote
thing,
about it.
man. I do the same thing. I'm alluding to something that the exact wording the system is talking, and I have to go back and look at how I worded that alert before, so that the alert is the same way again.
Is this dude the homeless man, or was he the slave trader? Which I can't remember. I got to go back.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I hear you.
that's why I have everything in Excel. So I've got like.
Yeah, I don't know how to use Excel. I've never had
Right.
to use it.
Yeah,
so.
I've got all my character sheets in Excel, and basically it's like the characters there, and it's got every level. What were their stats at that level?
Oh,
and,
see, I'm going to be screwed if I ever have to do that and look back.
And what were their skills at that level? So if I ever have to go back and look and say, well, because I've had to do that before, where I've had to go back.
I imagine that, but I've updated it every time, so I wouldn't have any.
Yeah,
any of that.
and
I'd have to
I
go
did
back
that
into the books.
I did that with
Yeah.
the first series. I just overwrote it and went, oh, and I had to go back and look at it, and then I had to go backtrack and like fill it in, and so now everything is like I track everything by level. So it's.
Have you ever had that though, where you're like instead of writing, I spent the whole day having to do leveling their character sheets, figuring out new abilities, figuring out because I had like a couple times I've had chapters where the chapter was about him and his brother and their little group all leveling, and so then I had to spend the entire day leveling all their character sheets and coming up with creating like ability lists.
Yeah,
and all
the names and the.
I
and
usually
I'm
enjoy
like,
that stuff.
oh my god,
Like,
dude, I didn't actually get any writing done today. I've like spent all day just.
I agree, Cailan.
yeah, I find a lot of fun enjoying that, but it is so time consuming.
Mhm.
Where it is like
It is,
I'll sit down for my hour to write in the day, and it's like, oh, the hour's passed. I've had a lot of fun, and I've gotten this stuff done, but I didn't write anything. So it's fun for me, but it's also very time consuming.
But
Oh, and you know what? I had to come. I had a really hard decision, like character. We were talking about this earlier. Character development and emotionally wise, the correct choice was to create a third pet while there's already 2 pets in the group.
I don't do pets.
But at the same time, I'm like, do I really want to juggle another pet? Writing wise, I mean, because I could do the whole Weidman thing where I totally forget about my pets and don't mention them.
You could do a familiar,
but I don't want to do that. Like the main guy, the main pet, Dozer, the Iron Test Boar, is a main part of the story. Is comedy relief, all that kind of shit.
You could do a spirit.
I could, but I was just like, I ended up doing it, and that's actually the chapter I'm in right now. It's a Alpha Dire Badger, who the little sprite names Cupcake. but so I ended up doing it because it was the right emotional development for that character, and I had just gone through a chapter of that character being very alone and sad and sorrowful and all those kind of things. But the reason I'm bringing that up is, do you ever get into those positions, and this is to both of you, get in those positions as writers where you have a choice to make that might help with character development, but it's another thing to juggle in writing and having to insert it and then have to keep juggling it forward?
So usually that's like for the most part that's very easy for me. Just as I'm writing, I just make the decision. It's not a big thing. But I had this huge alternate ending to book 3 that all hinged upon one decision that would have created this whole like chapter's worth of different content, and I had to just like decide which decision like the character would make because I had it mapped out either way, like the line going that would split off 2 different endings, and which to choose, like based off this decision.
Well, it could be like Clue, bro, where you go to page 86.
Yeah, I wish I could, because people aren't gonna, unless like I go on panels and talk about it, people are never gonna know this all ending that was so awesome, and I had dialogue planned for it that was great, but I just, he made the decision that I decided would leave like no plot holes. The other one, I'd have to do a lot of work to explain. Like, I'd have to go back and do other conversations and like alliances and explain
That
a
would
whole
be
bunch
a
of
cool
work.
book, though.
Do a bunch of backstory to make it make sense.
I chose the easy choice that aligned
would
more narratively with the plot.
I
Now,
would
what about
say
you,
that.
Kyle?
Well, and the plot in one of my books, it just, this one side character had to die. I mean, it was the only thing that really made sense for how the book was going. But this was an integral character to their party. So it's like, if I kill her, I have to replace her.
But it's hard sometimes when you're emotionally invested and you spend so much time developing a character to just kill them off.
I love this character.
Unless your name is George R.R. Martin, but then he just slaughters people like left and right.
I think the reason that he hasn't written his last book is he doesn't know how to kill the reader. That's what he's waiting for. But yeah, I think that basically for that one, I could have kept her around and like she almost died, but he saved her. It would have been a cop out, And so I let her die, and then I had to find a way to bring in another character and make it reasonable that they would bring in this other character, and why would she fit into the party, and why would they fill her role and everything. So it was a much bigger effort, but it made sense to do it. And it gave me one more thing to track and one more personality to keep up with. But, you just, sometimes the story dictates where it has to go. So.
No, it does. In book 1, I had to kill off a key character to the 2 brothers. I mean, my whole series is about blood brother, 2 brothers. And towards the end of book 1, I have to kill off a character. And I had spent so much time developing this character, and she was so important to like the development, that actually I was sad. I was actually emotionally drained when I got done writing her death scene.
Oh yeah. Dude, I admit I wept killing that character off. Her death scene between her and the main character, because they were love interests, and when she died and how she died and the interaction between the 2 of them as she died, that one had me all verklempt. I admit it.
Yeah.
I really enjoy, like, I love writing death scenes because you can, like, don't just make it the knife pierced his armor and he fell to the ground dead or collapsed dead. You want to make it like it's
if you're gonna get rid of a main character,
you can make it
epic.
as like epic and so much. Like, I love all the visuals involved in someone's death. So I also killed a feminine character in book 1 because I knew I was doing that. It was necessary for the main character's like evolution. And I haven't killed off a character yet. It's made me sad because like it's a big part of like who they are, like the way they die and like the ending of like their story. But I think I'm definitely getting to a part in book 3 where I'm gonna have to decide whether or not to kill like a large number of characters, and that I believe that is gonna be what makes me sad and what makes me hesitate.
Oh my god.
No, I mean, like, I put it this way. I won't name the author, but I just read a series that I've been into, and they have like, I don't know, 5 books out or something like that. And then all of a sudden in their latest book, they killed off some integral characters, which in itself is fine. But they showed almost zero emotional ramifications to the characters that were closest to them. The characters were like, oh, that sucks, and just kept going on, even though there had been like 3 books prior to this developing the relationship between this one character and the character that dies.
I'm
I was
sorry. I
like-
have to say this. I'm sorry. Has anyone read He Who Fights with Monsters?
Yeah,
Yeah.
he
Yep.
fights his monsters. Yeah.
Mr. North's death bugged me to no end because I felt like there was so much setup.
Oh no, I agree with
with-
you. That wasn't who I was referencing, but I agree with you when the
Yeah, but
the
there
brother
was
and the
so
and the
much-
girl he just started dating and all them die. There was like almost no
Oh no, Mr.
emotional
North.
response.
I agree
Huh?
with that, but Mr. North, the leader of the ELA.
Oh, the spider, yeah.
Yeah. I felt like there was so much setup for him and so much to learn about him. So many, like narratively, I took 2 days a break from the book where I was gonna finish the audiobook that night. Just some deaths, it's just like
No, this is the part that I just don't like. And I think sometimes, I think in that case and in the case of the other author I was talking about, I think they're churning out so many books so quickly that they do the easy route and don't want to take the time to like actually put in all that emotion, and because you would probably had to have dealt with another several chapters and dealt with the emotional ramifications of that would have then affected the action sequences they had lined up in battle and all that stuff that were going forward. But I just found it to be kind of lazy writing and not a very emotional payoff. To me, what we were talking about before, if you're going to kill characters that have become pivotal arcs within your narrative, there's got to be some kind of blowout if these people are actual human beings and not fake characters in a novel. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
humans are
It's
not
gotta be
drilled
the
like that
highlight.
unless you tell even soldiers that are career soldiers, when one of their main buddies dies in war, maybe not in the moment, but by the time they get back to the base, there's emotional blowout, man. There's emotional diatribe, PTSD, whatever you want to call it. Even career soldiers, like, it affects them heavily when their buddy gets blown up in a, you know what I mean?
Yep.
So to just kind of write it off and dust it off, I think you're not doing your readership or your writing justice, because it's
Yeah. A large death has to have a large impact, or the death itself doesn't matter. You know, I mean, it's one thing when, you know, some random NPC character that you just met once gets killed. Well, whatever. Okay. You know, you're in a world where people die all the time.
yeah.
So if the innkeeper happens to die, you're not going to go around weeping and moaning about it. But when, you know, the innkeeper's daughter that you've been dating for the last 6 months dies, you know, that's a different story. You should walk away from that.
I don't know if
upset.
it's because the author doesn't have the ability to write the emotion, or they're going too fast, or they're on deadlines, or whatever it is, dude.
Yeah,
I don't know
think
why you would just skip past it, but
I think sometimes what happens is, you know, as you're writing, you're just in this flow and you're writing the story that's in your head, and you're not necessarily looking at it from all points of view, which is where going back and editing comes in.
That's
You know,
what
after
editing
you're
is.
done, you go back and you reread it and you go, whoa, wait a second. These people would be a lot more affected by these people dying. And if it threw you off, then reading through it as an edit, you know, that should throw the author off too, and go, wait. That's not an appropriate response. And it's easier to see that when you're
no. And then the
going
other
back
series,
and
not
editing.
He Who Fights the Monsters, the other series I was referencing, the character even made a reference, like a joke, like several chapters later, of they're like, "Where's Sal?" or whatever. Oh yeah, you don't want to end up like Sal. He died back over there. I'm like, wait a minute, dude. This person has literally been rolling like 3 books in a row with this Sal
That's just a
nonstop as they're
sociopath.
like buddies.
That's a
Which is one of
sociopath.
the characters. But
And
I
not
love
only is there like no emotion shown when the person dies, but then they make a joke like 3 chapters later. If you do that, you might end up being another Sal. I'm
Yeah,
like,
I don't know if I could do that.
yeah, I don't know. And I really like this series, and he hasn't played like that through the first 4 books, and then that 5th book, I don't know if he was under a deadline and he was trying to just go fast, or I don't know what it was, but I was like, holy fuck, that was so anticlimactic payoff.
Yeah.
For your readers, man. Like, holy hell, you've developed this intense connection between these 2 characters, and then the girl acts like, oh, that sucked. He's gone bye now. Oh well.
When Kyle mentioned innkeepers, it made me think. I just want to get you guys ideas on this really fast. But when I love innkeepers because you can make them just the funniest characters. Like several of them I've had just be homicidal killers that like kill and use the people as fresh meat. A lot of them get brutally murdered. Just how do you two feel about side characters? Do you ever like go in depth about, not even in depth, but just give them a neat little twist?
Yeah.
Or are they? Do you have
I
any?
think it's important to make any character that has more than one appearance to add depth to them. It's like
Extremely.
I can only put it in the aspect of when I'm writing film. Is when I'm writing film scripts, which is my background. I swore myself I was never going to write the stormtrooper that says "move along." You know what I mean? Like every character I write, regardless of how many scenes they have, they've got to be fleshed out. They've got to have like an actual moment or two. Probably if I ever end up shooting up, I have a feature film that my upcoming video game is based on. It's a post-apocalyptic Mad Max kind of Sin City thing. But there's one guy that's only in one scene, and I guarantee you he's probably going to be one of the most popular characters in the whole film if it ever gets shot. So because I made him,
Yeah.
Well,
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I like giving those the little tiny tweaks that to a character. You know, it's the innkeeper who is a retired soldier that got mauled by a dog, like by a war dog in a battle, and now just hates all dogs. And so like when the party shows up and has a dog in it, he's like, get the heck out, you know, the dog can't be here. Just little twists like that.
Backstory.
It gives you just the tiny, it doesn't even have to be a big thing. It's just, how are you going to deal with that? It's a tiny little problem, but it's a problem that would happen in the real world. You know, I mean, that's something that you could see. And so innkeepers can be fun. Like you said, an innkeeper can be like obsessed about the strangest things, or can be the master of the house guy from Les Miserables, trying to get as much money out of you and nickel and dime you to death. Or they can be a lot of fun in a book. So
now, granted, I think the character I referenced in that film script, I think his name helped him. His name was Monster Cock. So, you know, he dies in the same scene that he's in, but you know what I mean? But
I will say I have a question. When you create side characters, do you have a plan on how to put in their backstory?
Well, I think if you create their backstory, it'll naturally flow into their dialogue or their personality when you're writing them.
But how do you flow that into your writing when your main story or when the story revolves around the main character?
Well, if it's third person, you can still through dialogue or through action or through many ways.
It's just the way that I write, and it's the same thing as the fast pace. I can't not do it. None of my characters are just like the soldier doing his duty, or the guy at the store just selling the meat. They're all just insane usually and evil, and the soldier actually got a slave trade, or the butcher's actually using like children's meat that he collected from his death trap well. Like all of my characters usually show it themselves through there are these subtle hints that any perceptive. My main character, he's got the first skill I got was perception, which is now epic ranked, which is there are 6 ranks that it goes through, but epic is the 3rd highest. So he's very perceptive. So he notices what's going on, and that's how it's displayed like to the audiences through. I do first person for the elementalist, so like you learn as the main characters.
Hey, I have to. That's a tough one, man, because I did first person in this series, but I had spent decades writing film and shit, which is always third person, and I literally every other second caught myself writing in third person and not first person, and I was like constantly having to go back. Most of my editing on book 1 was me fixing all of that shit.
I think I finally, it took me like the book 1, I had that happening, but I think in book 2, like it didn't really happen so much. But book 3, I think I've got to the point where like
book 3, I'm finally not having to do that as much. Yeah. But I'll tell you what, when I get done with book 4 or 5, I'm going to do that. I'm doing a new series, post-apocalyptic one. And I'm definitely writing that in third person, man, because literally that's the first person. First person is a handful, especially because then I had like the 2 brothers and the main character is the first person. I had a conflict of when I have like maybe 2 scenes between the first 2 books where the other brother goes off on his own and I go into his perception. And then I had to make a decision of like, am I going to do a second first person? Would that make sense?
Right.
And then I ended up deciding to do third person on the brother. But then it's still confusing. I had my narrator that was doing is in the middle of doing book 2, and he goes, and he knew I didn't catch some fuck ups in book 1 of going and dropping the third person by accident. And he was like, hey, just to let you know, like this scene about Mason is all in third person. I'm like, oh, I actually meant that one. But
I do. My main character, Jack, is in first, and everyone else. Because I have like 10 different POVs throughout the series, which might be a flaw on my part, but I love establishing like what's happening in different regions.
See, I was scared to do that too much since
they're
it's
in third person
point of view.
They're all in third person, and sometimes other characters will like encounter the main character in third person for them, as long as like it's from their perspective, not the main character's perspective.
Yeah, see, I just got scared. I wanted to do that a few other times. Like I was going to do a chapter on just the POV of the boar, the pig, Dozer.
Wow.
But then I was like, it's a first person book, and a lot of readers, when they're in first person, they want to stay immersed in first person. I didn't know if I wanted to create too many other points of view or bouncing out of that main character point of view once it was established. So I've been kind of apprehensive about it. I've only done twice, once in each book, once in book 1 and once in book 2. And I only did it because it was the brother who's really like a main character as well.
Well, I mean, conventional wisdom is if you're writing in first person, you stay in first person and you don't switch POVs. You're writing it like you're reading from your diary, or you're narrating it.
Yeah.
And you don't get to narrate other people's points of view. And that's the conventional wisdom. But the fact is that you can make anything work. I mean, there's nothing that you can't write. And Cailan said he didn't know if it was a fault of his. It's just a different way of doing it. I mean, there are people, readers.
1,000 roads to Damascus.
Yeah, and there are readers who love lots of points of view. I mean, the 5th realm or the 10 realms is a great example of this. The 10 realms, as it went into like books 5 and 6.
Hatfield, he's a very nice guy, by the way.
Yeah, and it just spread way out into so many points of view. And some people just raved about all these cool new stories.
But a lot of his complaints and his little reviews were...
tons of people said, God, we can't stand it because it's too... You're not going to make everybody happy.
I read like 3 of those books. They're very well written. He is a not only a good writer, but he's also a good person. Because I've talked to him several times on Insta. And he's supportive of other people, which is very beautiful, man. A lot of people I've noticed in this industry, they get bigger and bigger and bigger, become less and less and less supportive of other authors, unfortunately. Phoenix Gray is another great person.
Oh, I love Phoenix.
Yeah, Phoenix is an amazing spirit. I've become friends with her, and she's been very supportive. But The only thing I couldn't get into that series is I'm not really into cultivation, and that whole series is cultivation. It's not lit RPG. It's
very
pure cultivation book series.
And I stopped that. Like, I do multiple points of view in my books, but I do them like what Cailan was saying, to show what's happening in another part of the world that interacts with the main story.
Which is how I do it in film. But I believe me, people think because I've been writing for 30 years that novels would be easy. I'm like, bro, I've been writing poetry, lyrics, music, and film, none of which I have to give a shit about sentence structure. You know what I mean? So when I started writing this stuff, I'm like, dude, I'm starting from the babe in the woods, man. Like, I haven't, in 30 years of writing, I have not had to like worry about sentence structure. Poetry and lyrics, there's no sentence structure. Films, the only one that, what happened to Cailan?
Oh, I don't know.
But yeah, so like I was saying, it's just, you can't go wrong. You have to do what you have to do, but as long as you're writing what you love, you're probably going to be okay. So
hold on, I'm writing to
see where Cailan's at.
Yeah, I'm writing. Lost you. Hit link again.
Well, hey Kyle, let me ask you that. The same question I asked Cailan. Is how do you, like, is there a process that you follow for your stories when talking about going through characters' backstories? Do you give like subtle hints based off of what Cailan said, or is there like certain other process that you do?
I mean, when I'm coming up with a character, I kind of just decide as I'm like bringing that character in what their specific peculiarity is going to be and why it's that way. And I don't always, like, sometimes some of the backstory I come
Cailan's
up with.
back. There you go.
Hey,
yeah, my phone died because like it's supplying my computer with Wi-Fi, which like drains it, but it's charging my iPads now.
Hey, bro, anytime you do live video from like 4 different locations and all that stuff, dude, we have had, what was the guy that tried to do it in his car? And then his phone died in the middle of it. And then next thing you know, we were getting flashes because he kept trying to reconnect, flashes of him running in an alleyway. And then flashes, I mean, like, and the other guys, we kept talking to the other guys. And then, I mean, we've just had so many different scenarios. It's like ridiculous. And then two episodes ago, we had so this is the 3rd episode in a row I've done Lit RPG Authors. As kind of a tribute to me entering the genre. I wanted to throw some shine. Last episode, we had Phoenix. Yeah. But last episode, the other person, his power went off in his house. And then he finally got back on, but his computer, because of losing all the power from a power loss, was all glitching. So we ended up doing half the episode with just Phoenix. And then 2 episodes ago, another one, Kit, bless his heart. I don't know if he has issues with internet or whatever, but he was in a park trying to just get roaming Wi-Fi. And so he just kept freezing the entire time, like over and over and over again, because he kept losing his internet.
Huh.
So it's always an adventure, man. It's always an adventure. Now, granted, I will be, when I go do that other series, and I'm going to be in that 3rd person again, my natural habitation. I'll be doing way more POVs because it's a lot easier to do when you're already in, obviously 3rd person, limited omniscient or whatever. And then you can, but I only do them the same way you were talking about, Kyle, as I jump. And the same thing that Cailan said, how he's doing them, is I would only do that when it's you're trying to maybe a perspective from the villain in the story, or perspective of some other aspect of
something that's happening that's going to tie back into the main story later, so the reader knows what's going on, but the
I've just found from first person that is very first person adds a lot of benefit because it creates more immersion in your emotions and your and impact and all of those things. But holy hell, is it a juggle and a half to do a lot of other things, man. It's limited. It's freeing in a way and very limiting in a way.
Yeah.
But
Well, and you know,
all right,
Yeah,
so
the Elementalist is first person, but Flesh Golem is a third person, so that's definitely a lot easier to write in comparison to Elementalist. But Elementalist is a lot more immersive and a lot
yeah,
more
when
like
you're in first
emotion.
person,
You can
you
feel
got
what
to
like the
really
main
pick
character's
and
feeling
choose
is.
what you can do and when you can do it. Yeah,
yeah,
third
my
person
Doorverse
doesn't.
one is in first person.
Yeah, I don't
And
know
that
why I
one,
went with first person. I think it's because the whole series starts off with. I didn't want to do a bunch of exposition, man. I didn't want to spend the whole first book doing exposition all the way fucking through the book. And so I did a giant backstory in the very first chapter. And it only made sense to do it in first person. You know what I mean? So that he's telling a backstory. So a lot of people didn't like it, but then I was like, but then I won't have to do exposition all the way through the book.
Yeah.
And it'll set up villains later, and it'll set up all that stuff.
Right.
But and I'm gonna keep this series. It's gonna be 8 or 9 books in first person. But definitely my next series is gonna be third, man. It's much easier.
Way easier.
Thing to roll around in. But anyway, Cailan, I want to dance to you real quick because we've gotten on very interesting conversations and probably very poignant for young authors that ever watch this to hear all this kind of stuff. But what is your goal in the next 2 years, Cailan? Because we never got to that with you.
Definitely, I can't really say like I want to sell 1,000 books in a year because like that's not really like a goal. That's my main goal is to just I'd love to, if possible, like to hit 100 ratings next year, like 100 reviews on one book. I feel like would be like it's always been my biggest thing is like
Yeah,
reviews
ratings are
and, like,
hard
the
because
number.
people are lazy.
Yeah, and
You know,
Amazon.
I'm the same. I am one of those lazy
annoying.
people. I read books like nonstop, dude, and very
Amazon
rarely.
changed their policy right when I published. Amazon changed their policy right after I published, where you couldn't leave ratings. You have to leave like physical reviews, which I've always heard that all these authors like saying in different groups.
Well, I don't know.
They
I still get
lost
ratings. I don't know
ratings.
how
They've
people
been
are
not
doing it.
having like as many. Yeah, they haven't had like as many coming in, but that's right when I published. So like it was such a bad thing for me because less like they can't just leave 5 stars or 2 stars. They have to like write a review. So I wasn't getting as many reviews in. But I'm hoping now that Amazon's fixed that and gone back to ratings.
Well, I don't know because I
I
get
can get a
ratings
few
without
more in.
reviews.
That's
on my
definitely my
books. So
Yeah, and
yeah, Amazon just fixed that.
yeah, there was a time when they weren't doing it, and then they went back to it. So, right.
yeah, I
Yeah.
like. But it's just people are, and I'm included, bro. Very rarely do I leave a review. I should rate it. I should everything. But when I finish a book, I want to get to the next book. You know what I mean? And
Right.
and the way Amazon does
Mhm.
ratings,
I don't have
where
time.
I
I
have
gotta
to
get
fill
the
this out and show a photo of me holding the book and or whatever. When I tried to do it, I don't know how people do ratings because when I try to do it, it's trying to force me to do a whole review.
Yeah. I don't know. It does the same thing for me. I finish on my Kindle and
Yeah.
it's like write the review and I only review things that I love. I don't review things I didn't like because I'm like
I don't know. I did Kyle Karen's Ripple system, and it took my 5 rating, but wouldn't. It was terated with a bunch of cuss words, so it wouldn't take it as the review. They were positive. I was like, man, he fucking tore this shit up. They franked the fuck out of this thing, man. And
I love Frank. Frank is just
sadly
like
the
one
next
of my
day,
characters.
Amazon was like, sorry, your review is not.
Does not
They don't
meet
like
our
us.
standards.
Like imagine like Frank. I try and model every one of my characters off of like the Frank archetype, or like the archetype that Frank is, just that chaotic character. I just like have like 70% of my characters are like that, and that's how I lied. It's just those.
Hey, he nailed
like,
it.
they could
in
just
that.
do
A lot of
anything.
people try to do that, but he
At a
nailed
certain
it with
point,
the Frank. I mean, combat is not really his forte because that's
good.
all right. But he nailed it with the Frank thing and the characterizations. And he's doing in combat. He's doing kind of like what I said Robert Jordan did. So Robert Jordan wasn't good Wheel of Time. He wasn't good at combat. But he made up for it by just naming all these sword forms. So instead of actually writing combat, he was like, he did the mountain under the swallow, into the swing of the stars, into the, you know what I mean?
Right.
he compensated, or you have
I
other.
just throw a bunch of gore at you.
Yeah, but if you have lit RPG,
Like-
you have guys that use skills and abilities to make up for writing combat.
That's what my main character, his specific spells, they specifically cause a lot of pain. Not so much damage, but more so like mental pain to different enemies, like with a weaker wisdom or like constitution, like fortitude. So it's not exactly damage, but like he'll make
there's
them,
always ways
it's kind
of
of like in Harry Potter, like
cheating.
the Cruciatus spell.
There's always ways of cheating
Like,
your
just-
weaknesses, man.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like when I talk to young filmmakers and they have no budget and they write these giant fight scenes and they stupidly go back in a wide, even though they do not have stunt actors, and they're in a wide shot showing how badly these people don't know how to fight. When I try to tell them, I'm like, I get it. You don't know how to choreograph. You don't have stunt people, all those things. But there's always
Rings
ways
of
of
power.
cheating. Like they could use the camera to cheat a lot of that shit and go in close and go in tight and make it like just like really tight action and still get that kinetic energy without showing that the actors don't know how to fight. Same thing with writing, man. You can cover it a lot.
And then you got those
ways.
big budget productions that just can't do anything because they got the money, but they don't got the right people in charge.
Yeah, money doesn't mean you have talent or skill.
Yeah,
but,
definitely.
but you can do the same thing in writing. Like I've just explained how Jordan bypassed his ability to write. And then you have people like Miles Cameron who literally fences in real life and does medieval real life combat in full armor, who literally is probably one of the best combat writers in fantasy writing. You know what I mean? But not everyone does those things in real life and actually knows all the fencing and the sword things. Or you have
I wish I could.
yeah, but you can skip past it like Jordan did, or there's many little
Right. You can
authors
just-
that write
can
great
just say their
combat even though they're
swords
not actually writing
clashed.
visceral combat. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you can say their swords clashed. His feet danced through the movements, things like that, and not have
Although
to
the
write-
worst is when someone really can't write combat at all and they didn't cheat either. And it's just, there are series, and I won't name the authors. I got 30 pages in, hit the first fight scene, and it was so horribly bad, so badly written. Like the author holding up a giant sign is, I'm going to write like I know what I'm talking about, but I don't know anything of what I'm talking about. And it was so bad that I had to like stop reading because I could not like deal with it.
It's funny how
I feel like
many
I
people
feel like I definitely
think
need
they do.
What'd you say?
How many, yeah,
I feel like
people
I definitely
think they
need
know what they're
feedback
doing.
on this now because I have no idea how to scale. Like, because I can't judge myself with how good my combat is. I might think it's the best combat there is in this book, but then someone else might come and read it, and I need more reviews to give me more feedback. Like I love feedback, even criticism. And like I couldn't tell you how much.
Yeah, I just think you have to be
1 to 10.
self-aware and
Like,
be
I can- I think it's a
self-honest.
7.
And but again, like I said, there are ways, whether it be in writing or in film, to shore up your weaknesses and to cheat those things. You know what I mean? And I think it's only when you have like zero self-awareness, you literally.
And there are things you can do to find out some of this stuff too. Like, when I was writing the Phase Shift books, guns are a big part of it because it's post-apocalyptic here on Earth, and guns aren't really a part of my life. And I never served in the military thanks to these things right here. So but my little brother does. He's Army airborne. So I went to him and talked to him. What's it like to be shot at? What's it like to have explosions happen?
Yeah, and
next to
authors
you?
do that all the time.
What do you like in combat? And to go to we have shooting ranges nearby. Go to the shooting range and just what's it like to fire a gun? What's it sound like? What's it feel like? It's like if I'm gonna write it, I kind of want to have some idea of it.
Yeah, and you can research it. I mean, we all have literally. This is how sometimes I'm shocked. We all literally have an encyclopedia at our fingertips in a phone. And yet, how many people I meet that don't use it at all and ask everybody to do the legwork for them? They ask you these insane questions that you're like, dude, you literally could have answered that yourself in like 5 seconds.
Like I'll roll my eyes sometimes when I see that.
Yeah, I mean, it's Like I had this guy bash the blurb on the Audible. First of all, I kept calling it a bio, which was throwing me off. I'm like, the bio? What are you? You're talking about my bio. You're saying the bio is not good? What? There's no bio on that. And he's like, the bio. And I'm like, are you talking about the blurb, the synopsis? Is that what you're talking about? I'm like, it's not a bio. And then he's like, well, I can't tell whether it's what it is. Grimdark fantasy. What does that mean? I'm like, Grimdark is like Warhammer. It's Joe Abercrombie, First Law trilogies. And he goes, why are you throwing out a no-name English writer? I'm like, bro, did you just call Joe Abercrombie and the First Law trilogy a no-name? I'm like, I'm going to stop talking to you because me and you are so far apart on perceptions of worlds. Because if he said, I just wanted you to answer my question, I'm like, to me, I did answer it. I gave you multiple names that you could have Googled in 5 seconds that would have explained what it is.
Just search the word.
Yeah.
And for you to just name Joe Abercrombie, who is literally like considered one of the best writers ever in fantasy and has inspired more fantasy authors than most, and just by sheer wordsmithing and lyric like skill with putting words together is like considered like one of the top. To call a no-name English author, I mean, like that's like, bro, I can't even. I need to get a PR person because I can't even like literally talk to you right now.
That's like saying bashing Michael Moorcock. I mean, a lot of people
or Jordan or Robert Jordan or Tolkien. It's like saying Tolkien, that dude who wrote like a series.
That Robin Hobbs person, don't know who they are. That sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, but the thing is this guy was maybe like mid-20s, and I'm like, bro, I guarantee you have a phone literally in your hand right now.
Yeah,
that would literally take you 5 seconds to Google any of these things.
I feel so bad.
Even the whole concept to begin with, instead of bitching at me, he could have just Googled Grimdark Fantasy and had the answer right there. But instead, he was wanting me to write it word for word. And I've seen authors do that, and maybe someday a PR guy will tell me I need to do that. But he wants me to do this has people that level. This has people that there's a girl in it. There's a dog in it. There's basically break down.
Oh, no.
All aspects of what people raise levels. They level. They have classes. They have.
No, that's not a book. That's not
a synopsis anymore.
That's a glossary, but
but I've seen a lot of authors do it, bro, on their blurbs, on their page, author page. Literally, the book will literally say everything that's in the book. There's power leveling. There's classes. There's OPMCs. There's.
I mean, it's one thing on an ad, but.
Yeah, an ad is one thing, but I mean the blurb on the actual Amazon page, putting all that information just seems like you're literally trying to cater. You're trying too hard to cater to. Now, get me wrong, dude. A lot of these people that do that are actually in presses, or they're backed by presses. They're backed by maybe it's a marketing thing that just it's going to get more sales, and that's the bottom line. That's all that matters. And I might have a PR guy that tells me you need to do that. And at that point, I will hire someone to go do that because it would drive me nuts to actually go do all of that. But you'll meet all sorts of people, man. And I'm used to it, dude. 30 years in music, 30 years in music and film and all that. It's the same. All of it's the same. I mean, it's different, but it's
and
a lot of the same characters.
And, Cailan, even if you know all of this stuff, you write what you like to read and you probably love your fight scenes. But even if you went and took 2 years of training in, medieval longsword, there's still going to be somebody telling you don't know what you're doing and that you're wrong. And they're going to say, no, you're gripping it wrong. Or that's not how they would, they wouldn't be slashing. They'd be thrusting and stuff. I mean, I'm a judo instructor. I've been a competitive judoka for a long, long time. And so my character in Phase Shift also uses judo. I know judo. It's easy for me to write, so there's lots of fight scenes there. and he did a specific technique on an animal that attacked him, and somebody like messaged me and goes, "You can't do that. That's impossible. The person has to be wearing like a uniform." I'm like, "No, they don't. What are you talking about?
You mean to grab onto?
No, if you couldn't get a uniform on that mountain lion, then you couldn't have thrown him." I'm like,
dude, the mountain lion has extra
you
skin.
can't.
Is that what they're talking about? That you wouldn't have been able to get a grip?
You wouldn't have been able to get a grip. And I'm like, no.
That's dude, their arms, their paws.
I'm like, if you actually read, what happened is the mountain lion bit a hold of the staff he had in his hand, and he jammed his foot up under the mountain lion. The mountain lion's rear claws came up and scratched all over him as he threw him. So it's like, this is what would happen if you tried to do this to a mountain lion.
He did like a back roll and flipped.
Yeah, exactly. It's called a circle throw, and he did this, and he flipped the mountain lion over and got the mountain lion off of him. Like, you could do this, but to a real person, you would get shredded. But because this guy has been in this apocalyptic, world, he's tougher than normal. So the claws ripped up his clothes, but didn't scratch his skin. And that was like his
because you have stats like whatever toughness.
Yeah, that was his first hint that something weird was going on in the world, that like he should have been torn to shreds. And he's like, I'm not even hurt. How did this happen? So, yeah. So it was like, they're going to tell
you guys, we can go on for hours. It's been a great show, but I don't want to make this into like a 3-hour thing. But it's been amazing. It's been fun. Hopefully people that have watched this or are going to watch this will get insight into some amazing authors. And the post both in YouTube and in Facebook will have links to their specific books.
Yes.
So go check out and support their stuff. Also, hopefully young writers will be able to watch this and get a lot of insights into different things. I purposely try to bring up different things so that the people watching it could get insights into whether publishing, writing, taking on different things, whether it be first person, third person, combat, all of those things. And then remember, you guys, you literally, again, to everyone that has a phone in their hand, you have an encyclopedia in your hand. Feel free to utilize it. I use mine all the time. Every single time I see something I don't know, I Google it. Every time I think of something I want to know, I Google it. There is a plethora, unlike 30 years ago when I was a young lad, where you literally had to go to a fucking library and check out an encyclopedia. You know what I mean? Or go to the Blockbuster and rent a video. Hopefully find a video on it.
Blockbuster.
Yeah, you actually have all of that right at your fingertips now. So especially as an author, utilize that. Talk to experts, as Kyle said. If you don't know something and you want to write about it, with the internet, there is a plethora of forums, groups, even on Facebook. I guarantee you can find a group about anything. Woodpeckers. I'm sure there's a woodpecker group on Facebook somewhere where there are a plethora of experts that would love to talk about woodpeckers all day long, So feel free to utilize those things. You are the captain of your road. You are only limited by your own choices and your own aspirations and imagination, man. That's what this whole show is about. Dreamers talking to dreamers. Dream big, and then put the sweat and the work to bring it to fruition. Always support each other, you guys. You are not in competition with anyone other than yourself. There is enough of a pie for everybody. Don't ever think differently. Help those around you. Even if they're not helping you back, it doesn't matter. Send out good energy, get good energy. Always support other authors, other artists. I guarantee you it will always come back 100-fold, whether from them or some other karmic path coming towards you. But anyway, blessings and love to all dreamers and artists out there. I thank so much to my guests, Kyle Johnson and Cailan Wilkinson. Thank you so much to my co-host, Mark Potter, who is the technical genius that makes it all go. Sorry, as usual, you guys, we don't have enough time for him to do his shattered lightsaber, acrobatic wingtip, feather text this episode. But sooner or later, we will have the time, and it'll happen. But anyway, you guys, you've been watching episode 55, Stormcrow, Dreamers Talking to Dreamers. Have a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful evening.
Have a good night.